And welcome to The Watchman. We are standing on Israel's border with Gaza. Just a half a mile away from where I am standing right now is where Hamas rules a brutal Islamist dictatorship. Over the past 10 years, look, Hamas has waged instigated three wars against Israel, the most recent being in 2014. We've seen thousands, folks, literally thousands of rockets fired from Gaza by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other terror groups into Israeli communities like where I'm standing right now, Nakhel Oz. At the same time, we know that Hamas and Islamic Jihad continue to dig those terror tunnels. And the goal, folks, imagine this, picture this, the goal is for Hamas terrorists to tunnel under the border into Israeli communities and emerge in someone's living room, in a kindergarten, kidnap or murder Israeli civilians. That is the goal. But the good news, and we're going to hear about it today from our good friend, Watchman contributor, Middle East and global security expert, Avi Melamed, the good news is that Israel is fighting back. They are counteracting these Hamas tunnels. You're going to get the inside story and an up-close look today from here on the Gaza border about how Israel is countering the Hamas tunnel threat. And much more than that, we're going to give you a broader overview of what's going on in this tiny but deadly coastal strip called Gaza today. Folks, this is one of the hottest hotspots in the Middle East, and it is heating up by the day. So let's go right now to our good friend, Avi Melamed. Well, Avi, here we are once again. Welcome back to The Watchman, my friend. We were with you on the Lebanon border, looking at the Hezbollah threat, on the Israeli-Syrian border, overlooking the Syrian civil war. Now we are on another very hot border. We're just a few yards away from Gaza, where Hamas lives and breathes. And Avi, this area is heating up. There's construction going on. There's drones overhead. We're in an agricultural area right now. People might hear some sprinklers. A lot of things going on, a lot of buzz here on the Gaza border. What's the latest here?
Over there, very close to the border, you could see the Israeli bulldozers that are working. This is part of the massive construction that Israel is now engaged in, building this underground massive obstacle that is supposed to block the intrusive tunnels coming from Gaza Strip to the Israeli territory.
Yeah, Avi, those Hamas terror tunnels we saw in 2014, the last conflict, wow. Hamas trying to tunnel in under Gaza into Israeli communities.
Yes, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian organizations are tunneling in under the border into the Israeli territory. And the most recent news in that context is that seemingly Israel has come with some very practical answers to the challenge of the tunnels, which increase the pressure on the other side, because for Hamas and Islamic Jihad, tunnels are sort of a strategic weapon.
The suicide bombing threat from Hamas was big about a decade ago. The rockets obviously ongoing. Now the tunnels, they keep trying to up the ante, it seems like. What's the strength level of Hamas right now?
When Hamas took over Gaza Strip 10 years ago, a little bit more than that, actually he dragged Gaza Strip from one catastrophe to another, to the point where today in 2017, actually Hamas said to the Palestinian Authority, the same Palestinian Authority that Hamas kicked out from Gaza Strip 10 years ago.
Brutally in 2007.
Killing hundreds of his brothers.
Yeah.
Hamas today in 2017, 2018 actually says to the Palestinian Authority, well guys, here are the keys. Yeah. You should run Gaza Strip. You should take care of the lack of employment, the lack of services, the lack of housing solutions.
Electricity.
The electricity. Yeah. The damaged infrastructure that is all caused because of Hamas' radical way. And we, Hamas, we will stick to do what we know the best, and this is to initiate violence.
So, Avi, what you're saying is, what Hamas is saying to Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority is, hey guys, look, you handle governance and we'll just handle jihad. We'll keep our rockets, our missiles, our weapons, our tunnels, and we'll handle the military end of things.
Correct.
Hamas will not disarm.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Yeah. And you are very accurate. And it reminds us with a very similar model in a place called Lebanon. Yep. We are too familiar with what happened in Lebanon in the context of the Hezbollah. The same model, remember, Hezbollah is Hamas' role model. You could say like it's the older brother, it's the mentor of Hamas. And actually what Hamas would like to do in Gaza Strip is to exactly duplicate the Hezbollah Lebanese style, meaning there should be a civil government that should take responsibility for everyday life, while Hamas, in his view, will be exempted from any responsibility, and he will be engaged only with initiating military rounds against Israel.
The resistance.
The resistance. There is only one challenge as far as Hamas is concerned, and that is the fact that the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, is not a fool. Yeah. And he says to Hamas, I know that you would like to duplicate the Hezbollah model in Gaza Strip, but this is no go. The Islamic Emirate that Hamas established in 2007 in Gaza Strip is a story of a failure, an utter failure, because of Hamas' violent and extreme ideology and behavior.
Total disaster.
The recent reconciliation that was brokered by the Egyptian president and the Egyptian security and military leadership is very significant in the sense that neither the Palestinian Authority nor Hamas would like to be perceived or viewed as the one who are responsible for the collapse of that reconciliation.
So what you're saying, Avi, is that Hamas is up against the wall here a little bit. They're being squeezed in a lot of different directions. But then you have Iran, as we said, the leader of the resistance in the region, obviously, against Israel. What role is Iran playing right now in terms of Hamas and funding Hamas and supporting Hamas and stirring things up here?
Well, Erick, it's interesting. You probably remember that following the war in Syria, at some point in 2012, Hamas detached itself from the Iranian and the Syrian hug, and Iran retaliated by cutting support for Hamas civil projects, not Hamas military power as a Din al-Qassam brigade.
There was a rift between Hamas and Iran. Iran had been funding Hamas, then there was a kind of a falling out there in 2012 around that area.
Correct. And there was an ongoing attempt of Hamas at some point to go back to the Iranian hug. Yeah. The Iranian regime does not give a free meal, and one of the conditions of the Iranian regime for any kind of reconciliation was that Khaled Mash'al, the previous chair of Hamas political bureau, will be no longer in office. He's no longer in office.
That's right.
Now there is a new guy, Ismail Haniyeh, that used to be the prime minister of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and his deputy, Salah al-Aruri, that is a very senior person in Hamas military establishment, used to be based in Turkey, then he moved to Beirut. He is the one that's leading this whole rapprochement and reconciliation towards the Iranians. This guy, al-Aruri, just recently said the following statement. Listen carefully. He said, Hamas, Iran and Hezbollah has great relationships, and he emphasized that Hamas will never stand by the side of any factor that will damage Arab and Muslim communities. Here is an open question. Iran and Hezbollah are butchering Syrian Sunnis and Arabs, including, by the way, Palestinians in Syria. How do you reconcile this gap between the definition?
Right now, we're going to look at the human impact of living along Hamas-stan, the Gaza border. Avi, lead the way to Nahal Oz.
Let's go.
Let's go. Avi will be back with us a bit later in the show, but up next, what's it like to live and raise a family just half a mile from Hamas? After the break, we speak to the spokesperson from this great Israeli community of Nahal Oz to hear her powerful story. Do not move.